Hello and welcome to the next instalment of the podcast, Everyday People Living Inspirational Lives. And I'm Ian Pitchford, and I'm going to be your host for the day. It's a phrase that I probably overuse, but there are a number of people that have come into my life over the years that I feel totally blessed to have met. And today I'm going to interview and share, or he's going to share with you some of the thinking of one of those individuals. He's a gentleman that causes me to think and challenge my own thinking around how I see the world. And so I'm going to introduce him right now. And hello and welcome, Andy Jackson.
Hey, hello. That was a grand intro.
Well, you are a grand man. So my first question, really, just to set the scene, Andy, is tell us a little bit about your journey and how have you got to the place that you're at in life now.
Well, it kind of seems weird you calling me Andy when I've lived since I was a kid with a nickname of Jacko, and I've always kind of been Jacko to everyone bar my mum, who definitely calls me Andrew, which is quite interesting. I started my adventure, I guess, in the Scouts. I was fortunate to have really strong leaders in the Scouts that had the kind of attitude that opened up the possibility for me just to do anything I wanted in my life. And my parents shared that kind of attitude as well. So once I decided what I wanted to do with my life, it was just a journey, really. Then from that point on, where I could have the freedom to find myself and do the sort of things I want to do that make me feel happy.
Cool. And so what are the things that these days that make you feel happy?
It's from day to day, from week to week, things change a little bit. But over the years, I've looked for things that challenge me to be the best version of myself. And I definitely feel happiest when I can achieve that whole point of being the best version of myself. And I read loads and loads and loads, and the best version of myself is the thing that changes all the time. I'm always aspiring to be more than I was yesterday, and always looking for avenues to get there. I guess that's why we're great friends, because your journey is very similar in that, always looking for something else to help you be even more than you were yesterday, and carry on living. When I'm on pursuit, I'm definitely happiest. Whether that's running an event, or working at a championship, or working with a client, or whatever it is in my life, or working with my family, or playing with my kids, or going to dinner with my wife. It's always that thing about trying to have the richest experience that you can from that.
Cool. I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but just to set some context for our listeners, are you happy to share a little bit about your sporting prowess, both you as an athlete and as the great coach that you are?
Yeah, I mean, I was in 1999. I'd been to, I left school and I went and worked in the building trades, and I had an okay time, but I had an okay time with the people, but I didn't find the work particularly exciting. I do now, interestingly, but so I went to university after working for 8 years, and then after I went to university, I started working for a company, Dyson, the vacuum cleaner company. And at the time, I'd always been in paddle sports. I'd always been coaching and paddling hard white water, and then doing freestyle stuff at the time. And I got selected for Great Britain team the first time in '97, and went to Canada. And I think that was probably the start of my journey into understanding what I wanted to be as a coach within the sport, because I didn't do particularly well, and it was nothing to do with my athletic ability. It was just the thing of getting there and coping with who I was as a person in that environment and managing to stay present. By '99, I'd been working for this company, Dyson, and I'd left that job to go to New Zealand to the next World Championships. And, I was sat there one day in a hot spa, and I just experienced the same thing of not having the performance I wanted to have. And then I just, these thermal springs that are on the side of the road in New Zealand, we were sat in one of those, and I was thinking to myself, I really like to understand how come. And pretty much from that moment in '99, I started the journey. So in 2000, I started my own coaching company. And it was initially, we framed it in something to do with the pursuit of excellence, to help people find their way through. And, there's a coaching model which was technical, tactical, physical, psychological. And the psychological side was the side that really interested me. Although, obviously for elite performance, you have to get all of those right. And then, from 2000 to 2013, I ran that company, worked with lots of national teams in canoe sports. I had quite a few successes with athletes I was working with, lots of national team places, European champions, world champions, that sort of thing. And, this constant evolution thing that I was always doing. This thing about reading is, when I was at school, I probably read one book, and then I left school and I started this coaching journey. And as soon as I started it, I started reading, and it would be, all those classic titles like the 7 Habits and those kind of things, The Path Less Walked and all that. I think I remember the titles properly, but that's a long time ago. And reading all that stuff. But what I was able to do was, when I'd read something in a book, because I was doing so much coaching, I could both recall situations where I may have used that model, or I could recall situations where I might want to use that model. And somehow that cemented the stuff into my mind, so that when I actually got out there and those circumstances arose again, I found it really, really easy just to pull all sorts of weird stuff up from things I'd read and apply them in my own flavour. And I always felt incredibly confident to do that. I suppose the most enjoyable part for me was I love youth development work, and I still run youth development programs today. But it's this whole notion, and I think you said it to me in the first place when we were talking about this. It's about growing people, and I love that. And so a lot of the young athletes that I've worked with, they've not only won championships, but they've had good educational success. They've held down really good jobs. There's lots of them having adventures all over the world, running projects, doing all sorts of cooperatives with farming and stuff with charities, and that's probably my journey, pretty much to date. But I suppose the other thing worth mentioning, in 2016, I had heart surgery. I had just one day, I had a pain in my back, actually, that felt like a pull between the muscles. And then I felt dizzy, and then we got off to the hospital. And a week later, I had heart surgery and I had a aortic dissection. And it was a birth defect I never knew I had. And I was lucky to survive it. But it was it's an interesting moment, because when you tell people about it, they want definition. People want you to go, this is the defining moment in my life. But you know what? It just made me want more of what I was already doing. It wasn't something that changed me. It wasn't something that made me think, oh, I should do this, I should do that. Because actually, I thought, my big things when I was led in a hospital bed in intensive care, and for the weeks after in recovery, was thinking about stuff I still wanted to do. And there was a lot of it. There was a lot of stuff I still wanted to do, but it wasn't in a way that, oh, I wish I had. It was in a way of, oh my God, it's still so exciting, this journey.
Cool. Thank you for your honesty, and just for the record, it was also a bit weird calling you Andy. So my next question is, because probably what our listeners don't necessarily know is that you are currently one of the most successful freestyle coaches, of all time. If there were points for podium places, then of athletes that you've supported, then you probably would be at the top of the league table by quite some significant margin. My hunch is. But I suppose my big question to you really is, so what is it that actually inspires Jacko? What is it that inspires you? What is it that causes you, that you look for in the world for you to engage in being the best version of yourself?
I mean, the biggest buzz I get is growing people and helping people to get past the things that I had in my athletic life, which, after my athletic life, I realized that they were things that were holding me back in my own life as well. My feeling is the big thing for me is when I know that people are growing, and that can bounce back at me. There's lots of the more senior athletes, all the guys and the girls that have moved on now, that it's quite interesting when we talk that it's a full-on mentoring relationship, in as much as we're sharing beliefs and values at such a level. It's not like I'm coaching anymore. It's like to know that person's grown to that level, the kind of way they think now, allows them to believe the same thing that I believed. You can do anything in this world, and it is an adventure, and you've got to get out there and charge. That's the bit that drives me, to see those people, coming back when they're doing it, when they're growing, and then when they come back. That's the absolute highlight for me. But it's heartbreaking as well, because in some ways the negative side of that is very often you'll help someone grow, and you'll almost get a little intoxicated perhaps in the relationship, and you grow people to a point where they will grow past what you're offering. And whilst that's super awesome, it's also it can be a kind of heartbreaking thing as well, because they move on with their life and they do other things, and you're like, actually, I really enjoyed our relationship. So it drives me, but it's also the thing that hurts the most. It's weird.
And do you actively seek to be an inspiration to others?
My father always told me, you have to stand up and be the person. You have to be that person. There's no way around it. It's whether it's running an event or doing the other work I do. I mean, the event thing, the early classic thing that I do. The biggest thing with that is joining people together, but I have to stand up. I have to stand tall. I have to show that it is possible. I can take it on my shoulders, so everybody can take it on theirs, and we can share the load, and it'll be easier. The thing is, you have to stand up. It's no good sitting back. You have to stand up and do these things.
So what is it? Where is it that you go? What is it that you do on those days where it feels as though it's going to be tough to stand up? What is it that helps you do that?
I can go a few weeks without doing any meditation stuff, and I'll notice that I've dropped off a bit, and I can do a few days of meditation and be right back on things. But also, you're not doing stuff alone. If you've got good people around you, I'm fortunate. I've got amazing friendship groups. Like literally loads and loads of people that I can count on and talk to about things that if I've got it wrong, they tell me, and if I need to change the way I'm approaching something, they'll advise me, and I feel like I've got kind of two sides of that. I've always got this really awesome kind of self-reflection and ability to quiet my mind and then come back at stuff through meditation, but then also an amazing group of people around me that just, no matter what it is, they're sort of there's always the possibility that something even better than I imagined will happen.
So how do you go about sharing all of that? Have you got a strategy? Have you got a formula? Is there a starting point? Is it something that is just quite spontaneous?
I mean the event stuff, the early classic stuff, like I get loads out of that through the fact that you can put a message out asking for volunteers, and loads of people come forward. And with that event, and very much how I am with myself, I want the culture that I put across to be, to be open and honest and to be respected. And whether you go to the event or you see me working in my coaching environment or how I am with my friends, that's the kind of higher level values to me about how, and they allow, that's the vehicle, if you like, for making sure that those things actually work.
So if I was I have been many times. So let's rewind to if we were to rewind to the first time, if I was a fly on the wall, seeing you at your best, being this incredible, inspiring individual that you are, how would I know from the outside looking in? What would I notice in the world of Jacko?
I don't know what you're asking. Just ask again.
So if I was a fly on the wall, when you're being the best version of yourself, what would I see? What would I notice?
You'd notice that people were present and they were happy. They could be content in the environment that they were in, and content and happy in the environment they were in. I think that's when when I'm working at my very best and things are working, the people I'm working with are working at their very best. But to see that there's no, it's not stressy. It's just a flow. It's just a nice thing that happens.
And do you think it's easy for people to enter into that flow space, and that also wanting to make a commitment to be the best version of themselves, or is it something that you find that initially you've got to work hard around educating people that it's possible and plausible sometimes?
Yeah, I there's definitely folk that are prepared to already. I think is more than prepared. They're ready to learn learn the things they need to learn about themselves to get to where they want to go. And there's definitely folk that aren't quite there yet. And it is, that whole thing is. I guess I'm fortunate these days that most of the people that come to me and want to work with me, they may come and they may want to work with me because they want to be the world champion. But within two sessions with me, we've soon established that the goal has to be about personal growth, and any kind of medal orientation comes from personal growth, and that's the medal is almost the means to the ends, and very quickly, within 2 sessions we're at that point, and we know where we're going with things, and we can face some of our own limitations, and move on from that point.
And do you ever get any people who just who aren't ready for that? Do you get many people that abreact to that philosophy, to wanting to be the best version of themselves?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, totally. Of course you do. Yeah. And sometimes you can help them, and sometimes, sometimes you can put stuff in front of them that helps them to move to a place where they can. And other times you can. I think it's not always possible, is it?
Mm. Yeah. And how do you feel when that occurs? What occurs for you at that point in time when you see such potential in someone's ability, but maybe that actually the limiting factor they're presenting with is just themselves, and they're not ready to engage in being that holistic version of the best version of themselves?
I don't get emotional about it. I mean, the important thing for me is to keep the door open, so that they know there's always an opportunity to do stuff with me. And I'm not the only coach in the world. There's other people that might have a breakthrough with them. I don't get upset, because I don't think I don't attach my ego to any of it. It's not, it's just a way of, if I can help people grow, I can help them. If if it doesn't work with me, then it's fine. Somebody else might be able to help.
And so, if you had a formula for sharing Jacko's flavour of inspiration and your model with the world, what is it that you would teach people? That question is really tough, because if I think back to much of the work I did, there's always incredible flexibility in what I do, and it's like I'm not sure that you can go, this is the winning formula to achieve this. It's always got to be live, and then you've got to be able to go somewhere, and you've got to be able to act in a way that's bringing the best possible version of yourself at that moment. So to find a formula, I don't know. I guess for me, the thing that I would say is being incredibly present and trying to use all of your senses in what you're doing to find out, to help, whatever it is, to help people grow. And how do you know that people are growing? What is it that you see? How is it measured? Can it be measured?
Well, there's obviously performance measurement, in terms of, in a sport, where whether it's time or height, or as it is in my sport, it's about scoring points against tricks. You've obviously got that measure. More than that, I think on a slightly subconscious level, you notice that the language of the person changes because of the questions you've been asking them. You're asking them questions where you're trying to get them to be constantly more and more specific in their answers, and as they grow, you definitely get that. So you don't get the revelation of a limiting belief, or you don't get the somebody saying, I think. you start to get a much more sort of precise framework around what someone's doing. And you, the other thing that I notice within their growth is that the better you get it, the less they need what I've got to offer. So, ultimately, I make myself redundant, I guess, but less and less.
I remember on the very first coaching course that I did, maybe 30 years ago, and the idea of making yourself redundant as a coach was kind of aired, almost as though, quite, I don't know, almost skeptically by the tutor. But it's just a fundamental part of the fabric of, of the way that I suppose that we go about doing what we do these days, to create really robust, resilient performers, people who are living their lives, who are engaging in being the best version of themselves. So it's really heartwarming to hear someone else talk about that in that way.
Yeah, you certainly you look out there, and there are distinct styles of coaching, and there's a distinct style where a coach constantly wants somebody to be under their wing, and there's a distinct style where a coach wants somebody to have all the capabilities that they can possibly have, so they can make the best decision for themselves in any given situation. I'm definitely looking at the latter, always looking at the latter.
So if you were to close with sort of one final statement, what is Jacko's mantra to life then?
I don't know. There's lots and lots of them. It's, yeah, I don't know. There's lots of them.
I'm gonna push you, Jacko. What's the one that springs to mind right now? What's the one that pops out of this conversation for you?
It's a difficult answer. I don't know. Ask the question one more time, and I'll go with the first thing that comes in my head.
All right. So, what is Jacko's mantra for life?
My goodness. I don't know. I just there's something there, but
so the reason why I'm smiling, which the listeners won't necessarily be able to is to see, because actually having known you for quite a long time now, then the one thing that is absolutely and utterly actually is amazing is the phrase that you keep repeating, which is "I don't know," and the way that I always interpret that in a conversation with you is that it's always you always presuppose that the person that you're talking with knows best about themselves, and whilst you can make a fabulous contribution to them on their journey, unlike a lot of coaches and a lot of people who show up, certainly in a physical coaching environment, then it is presupposed sometimes that the coach does know, and the coach knows best. And I love the fact that when you're in a coaching conversation or a coaching relationship with you, Jacko, you've already assumed that I know best about me, and that you're there just to help me find it.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's my mantra. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the point, I suppose, isn't it? You're always searching, trying to find out what it is. It's it's an interesting way to end, because most of my coaching is around asking questions that I don't know the answers to. So maybe that is my mantra, Ian. I don't know.
And I think sometimes, we spend a long time, don't we? The need for certainty, and actually it becomes incredibly uncomfortable for a lot of people in life to live with uncertainty. The human condition very often tries to be able to make it certain, have the answer to the question. And one of the things certainly that you and I have had many conversations about, and certainly has been a fabulous part of my own personal journey, is to be able to live with not knowing, is to love not knowing, is to be able, because in there is excitement and opportunity and all sorts of things, stepping away from certainty and any other things that may constrict my thinking as opposed to expand my thinking. So yeah. I love those sorts of conversations when you and I have a conversation where literally neither of us know.
Yeah, that's it's a great place to start, eh?
Yeah. And right now, a great place to finish. So I am going to say thank you very much indeed, Jacko, for being my guest today, and more importantly, for actually being one of those amazing go-to individuals in my life. Jacko at times creates a lot of answers for me, but he's never given me an answer to any question that I think I've ever asked. For me, from the outside looking in, what he does is he creates this beautiful space where you get to be able to explore your own performance. And sometimes that is a physical one, sometimes that is an intellectual one, and I've no doubt for some people that is a spiritual one. So thank you very much indeed, Jacko. And this was Ian Pitchford, and this was the podcast, Everyday People Living Inspirational Lives. But just before I sign off, because I've forgotten to ask you one last question, if people wanted to get in contact with you and they wanted to know a little bit more about how you work in the world, how would they say hello to you, Jacko?
They can email me. Are you sending out notes with have you got a notes attachment with the podcast?
There will be, yeah.
Yeah, you can have an email or Facebook or that kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
So thanks very much indeed for listening today, and I'm going to say goodbye to you all now. This was Ian Pitchford and Andy Jackson, or more commonly known as Kayako Jacko, and just going to say goodbye, and this was Everyday People Living Inspirational Lives.